All right, well, it's a new day. Yesterday the rains really picked up and I kind of had to abort my mission. So today the sun is shining in Boston. Of course, today's the day I have to leave. So I'm kind of going to go back to where I was headed and hit a few more spots that I was not able to get to yesterday. Hopefully, if all goes well, I'm going to get to the burial ground where some of the greats are buried. Paul Revere, John Hancock, people that signed the Declaration of Independence. I just didn't feel like I could leave Boston without seeing that. So I'm going to keep heading this way and see what I see. So right now I'm standing right in front of one of the historical sites that I really did want to take time to include in this video. Take time to just soak it in. And that is, it's called the Old South Meeting House. And it is the second oldest church in Boston, but that's not all it is. I'm going to turn the camera around, give you a look, and tell you all about it. It's pretty difficult to get this all in. Maybe if I go across the street, I'll have a better angle. But this is the Old South Meeting House. It was built in 1729. As I said, it's the second oldest church in Boston, the largest building in colonial Boston. This church, the Old South Meeting House, this was used for public meetings when the angry crowd outgrew, I think it's pronounced Faneuil Hall. I've been saying it Faneuil, but I think it's Faneuil Hall. So when the angry crowds that were upset about the taxation without representation, the crowd grew in size and they could no longer all fit in Faneuil Hall. So they moved those meetings over here to the Old South Meeting House. So a lot of the crucial events that led up to the Revolution took place right inside those walls. The most famous of those meetings was held on December 16th, 1773, when over 5,000 people gathered to protest the tax on tea. During that British occupation of Boston in 1775 to 1776, British troops desecrated this sanctuary of freedom by using it as a stable and riding school, while drinks were served from the balcony. The pulpit and pews were chopped into firewood, and the library was used as kindling, if you can believe that.
The British overtook the property and treated it in that manner in retaliation for the Boston Tea Party and the rebellion as a whole.
But one thing I want to be sure to mention is this is where everybody met when they decided that they were going to revolt and throw all the British tea into the harbor in what would become known as the Boston Tea Party. Let's see if I can get a better look at it from across the street, but this is it. This is where that all took place. There is some signage on the wall about the building. It states that it was built in 1729 as a Puritan meeting house. Benjamin Franklin was baptized here. Phyllis Wheatley, the first African-American author, worshipped here as well. In the years leading up to the Revolution, colonists gathered here to challenge British rule. On December 16, 1773, more than 5,000 colonists met here to protest the tax on tea. And here is where they heard Samuel Adams give the signal that started the Boston Tea Party, like right in these walls. This is crazy. In 1876, Bostonians fought to save this building from the wrecking ball, if you can believe that. The first successful historic preservation effort in New England. In the early 20th century, this building provided a forum for public debate and opened its doors to controversial speakers who were denied a platform elsewhere. I guess there's a museum inside. I don't know that I'll have time since I am leaving today. But it does say that today the Old South Meeting House lives on as an active meeting place and museum, providing a unique historic location for the sharing of ideas. That's just wild to think that all happened right here. Let's see what this one says. It says is a truck. The Old South Meeting House has been designated as a registered National Historic Landmark. I would say so. I would absolutely say so. It is really interesting to take a look at. You could see how old this brick is. You could tell that it is authentic. It's just incredible. This is where it happened. This is where our forefathers fought for our freedom. Right inside here. Look at over the door. It seems to mostly be original. It's actually right across the street from the memorial to the Irish, the famine. But I thought I would get back to it yesterday, and I didn't because the rain got too heavy. But if you ever come out here, you can find the old State House right across the street from the Irish famine memorial. From across the street, you can get a better look at it, at all of it. Still hard to fit in one frame, but that's it. It's a thing of beauty. And it's kind of funny to see such an old historic building that shaped our country right across the street from a Walgreens. We got the old and we got the new right here at this intersection of Harvard and Water, I believe. So beautiful. Wow. So we are passing by the Omni Parker House once again, which I did talk about yesterday. However, since then I found out a few more details. In addition to, JFK proposing to Jackie here and John Wilkes Booth staying here shortly before he assassinated Lincoln, this is where Parker rolls were invented inside this hotel, and also Boston cream pie. So again, it was only known as the Parker Hotel back then. And that's why they're called Parker rolls. They were invented at the Parker Hotel in Boston. So I thought that was a interesting little tidbit I wanted to add on while I'm here. Check this out. Isn't this what we see like in every movie that talks about Boston? The smoke coming out of the sewer covers. And coming out of this one pretty heavy, if you could see it. Some of it's coming out of that one over there too. So every movie you've seen about like the Boston Strangler or what have you, it's got that steam coming out. And it's a real thing. This is a little surprise I came across. Now, the North Church, the North Church is pretty far north of where I am right now. In the north end. I mean, not super far, but a few miles at least. But right here in the middle of the sidewalk is this plaque commemorating the North Church's role in the Revolution. Look up and see the North Church Tower, where were shown two lantern lights on the night of April 18, 1775, to send Paul Revere on his famous ride and begin the American Revolution. This view is preserved for all future generations by Charles Hilgenhurst and colleagues of the Boston Redevelopment Authority in the year 1960. So I'm thinking, if I look up, there's supposed to be a view of the church, but there's this big truck in the way. So that plaque did say, look up and you'll see the North Church. And from a little further back from that plaque, you can see it kind of sticking up right there. But this building or whatever that is sort of blocking it. So where the plaque actually is, I don't think you can see it anymore. But if you come up the sidewalk a bit, so maybe they need to move the plaque, I don't know. But there it is. You can definitely see the steeple of the North Church, and that's where the two lanterns were hung on the night of Paul Revere's ride. One if by land, two if by sea, right up there. And the church is still there all these years later. All right, I made it to my destination. So right behind me is what is called the Granary Burial Ground, and it was named that because of its proximity to Boston's first granary. This is the most visited burial ground in Boston because of the people that are buried here. So let's go on in and take a look and pay our respects to some of our greatest forefathers who fought for us. So right on the gate we have some signage with some information. Historic Burial Grounds Initiative, established 1660. National Register of Historic Places, Historic Beacon Hill District. This burial ground is a place of honor and history. The condition of the gravestones is the result of time and the effects of weathering. So, and then over here we have this green plaque, Paul Revere. This tablet is a memorial to Paul Revere, is erected by the Paul Revere Memorial Association to commemorate the opening to the public on April 19, 1908, of his old house at number 19 North Square in this city, which is on the north end. And I've been there, but they didn't allow any video, so we're going to have to do with photos of that. So let's go in and take a look. Within this ground are buried the victims of the Boston Massacre on March 5th, 1770.
I really butchered some of these names that day on site, so let me try again. Hosea Franklin and his wife, who are the parents of Benjamin Franklin, Peter Faneuil, Paul Revere, and John Phillips, the first mayor of Boston.
Here it says, within this ground are buried John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and Robert Treat Paine, signers of the Declaration of Independence. And it goes on to list some governors as well. So I saw on the map that Samuel Adams is kind of to the right. So let's go see if we can find him. It's not very large for a cemetery. It's just this area over here and this area over on the left. Now I had read that the King's Church burial ground was the first burial ground, but it started getting full. So they needed to create a new burial ground, and this was it. Let's see, could this be Samuel Adams? Here he is. Wow. Here lies buried Samuel Adams, signer of the Declaration of Independence, governor of this commonwealth, a leader of men, and an ardent patriot, born 1722, died 1803. Sons of the Revolution. Holy cow. Just going to take a moment here, pay my respects.
The church bells being rung are at the Park Street Church, which acquired the nickname Brimstone Corner, both in reference to the fire and brimstone sermons that were held there, and to the gunpowder that was stored in the crypt during the War of 1812. Park Street Church was founded in 1809. The church's 217-foot white steeple was the first landmark a traveler saw upon approaching Boston. On July 4th, 1829, abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison gave his first public anti-slavery address here, and 2 years later, on July 4th, the hymn America, better known as My Country 'Tis of Thee, was first sung on those church steps.
So after Samuel Adams' grave, if you kind of turn around and walk back towards the entrance here, come to this main thoroughfare, keep walking, we're going to see the monument, the Franklin Monument, straight ahead. Straight ahead. I have a feeling this is one of the more regularly visited grave sites. Let's get closer. I can't quite read that from here, but later on when I'm able to zoom in and look at this footage, maybe I'll be able to recite what that says. It's pretty impressive. From the Franklin Monument here, right behind me, if you keep walking to the left, I believe we'll run into John Hancock's grave. Let's go take a look. Here's something that gives you a little bit of information about the Franklin memorials.
After my visit, I learned that a motif commonly seen in this cemetery is the soul effigy, which depicts a skull with a wing on either side, just like you see here. It serves as a representation of a soul flying to heaven. Some other common depictions you might see when visiting this cemetery is the Grim Reaper and Father Time.
All right, onward with the search for John Hancock. Look at some of these, though. I love how they say, "Here lies the body of." These old tombstones are just incredible. I mean, they're tombstones, I know, but they're old and they're still here. After all these years, they're still here. It's just kind of crazy. So they make it pretty easy actually to find them when you first come in through that main entrance, which is right back there. You know, you make that first right and you go down to Samuel Adams, and he's pretty easy to spot. Then you come back to the entrance and you keep walking up that main boulevard and you run into the Franklin Monument, and then you make a left and you come towards me, and there is John Hancock's burial site. Let's go take a closer look. Mr. Hancock. Wow. This is just, I don't know, it's just wild that this is all still here. Like, where's it gonna go? But still, it's just kind of mind-blowing. Mr. John Hancock. The inscription is pretty faint. I don't know if you can make it out, but it says, "This memorial erected and..." Can't quite make that out. Erected by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to mark the grave of John Hancock. I think that's a date. Erected, and it's a date in Latin. But there you have it. He's right there. Now from here, from John Hancock, well, it sounds like we have a couple of options. We could either walk back to the Franklin Monument and head that way, or I suppose we could just go up here and over that way. And we should find Paul Revere, the Midnight Rider himself.
It is believed there are 5,000 individuals buried here in the Granary Burying Ground, but only 2,345 grave markers.
A lot of tombs over here, as well as headstones. Quite a few.
Towards the back of the cemetery is where the tombs were initially placed. Puritan churches at the time did not believe in religious icons or imagery, so instead, they used tombs as an artistic expression of their beliefs surrounding the afterlife.
There's the bells again. Here we have it. Paul Revere. Born in Boston, January 1734, died May 1818. Look at all the coins and rocks people have left. People have left for him. Shadow is pretty bad this time of day. Apparently there's so many they've fallen down and landed on the ground. So that is it. The gravesite of Paul Revere, the Midnight Rider. Pretty important fella, I would say. As are the others I've shown you. I just noticed this little bronze plaque over here. Boston Tea Party participant. I think I saw that at Samuel Adams as well. I'll have to go back and look. But that's gonna do it for Mr. Revere. So I'm about right in the middle of it here. And from here you can get a good look at the whole cemetery. Main entrance gate section with John Hancock. Right in the middle is Franklin, and that section with Samuel Adams. And that's really it. And then of course right behind me, Paul Revere. This section's pretty small. And that is it for the Granary Burial Ground. That's all there is to it. Lots of well-preserved old headstones. So I didn't realize it. I was actually right here, but this is the marker that designates where the remains of the victims of the Boston Massacre are buried right here. I wasn't sure what I was looking at when I passed by here before. So this is where 5 people killed during the Boston Massacre were laid to rest. And this tour guide was just saying that Samuel Adams paid for all of it, and he was a very nice guy. So, and you know, I guess it's appropriate that that's right next to Samuel Adams. And yes, you can see there's another one of those bronze plaques. Participant in the Boston Tea Party. Well, that's going to just about do it for the Granary Burial Ground. I hope you enjoyed seeing it. So much history. So we've come across another landmark on the Freedom Trail here, and this one is the King's Chapel and Burial Ground. So I'm not going to be able to get this all in one frame, but this is the King's Chapel. Try to pan up and then I can tell you a little bit about it. So this King's Chapel, under orders from King James II in 1686, the land was seized and the first Anglican church was constructed. By 1749, the original wooden structure, it was too small for the congregation, and so the Georgian chapel was constructed around the original church. Oh, I hate this part. Slaves sat in the rear gallery on the cemetery side. You're going to see there's a cemetery just over there to the left. And condemned prisoners, they sat to the right for a last sermon before being hanged on the Common, on the Boston Common. Wow. In 1785, this King's Chapel became the first Unitarian church in America. That's pretty wild. The governor's pew was not only used by the royal governors, but also by President Washington on his 1789 visit to Boston. And then just adjacent to the church is a burial ground, and that is called King's Chapel Burial Ground. It's Boston's first burial ground, so let's go take a look. Here is a sign letting you know you are at the King's Chapel Burial Ground. So as I said, this is right next to the church, and it was the first burial ground in Boston. So here you're going to find the graves of John Winthrop, Massachusetts' first governor, William Dawes, Paul Revere's compatriot, who also made the ride to Lexington, and Mary Chilton, believed to be the first woman to step off the Mayflower. This is pretty small. It's, gosh, maybe less than a quarter of the size of the other one. But we'll take a look around. So here I have located the grave of John Winthrop. He was Massachusetts' first governor, and as you can see, it's scattered, has pennies scattered all over it as well. And here lies the grave of William Dawes, Paul Revere's compatriot, who also made the ride on that fateful night. Lots of pennies on this one as well. This is where he is laid to rest. Patriot, son of liberty, and first messenger sent by Warren from Boston to Lexington on the night of April 18th to 19th, 1775, to warn Hancock and Adams of the coming of the British troops. Born April 6, 1745, died February 25, 1799.
Well, I don't know what this interesting thing is, but I don't think I even want to know. I just wanted to add that the church has a bell originally formed in England, but later recast by Paul Revere in 1816 after it had cracked in 1814. That bell still rings to this day to call for worship. In addition, it's estimated there are at least 1,000 individuals buried here, but there are only 505 headstones, 59 footstones, and 78 tombs, with only 38 marked. In the early 19th century, steps were taken to rearrange the gravestones into straight rows during a beautification project, which has caused inconsistencies between the markers and the bodies underneath.
All right, now I'm walking back to my hotel. Here we have another view of this building where they plotted the Tea Party. And it looks like the door's open, so I might be able to go take a peek inside.
I've already given you the history of the building, so I will not narrate this part. Instead, I'll allow you to take a look at the exhibits inside the Old South Meeting House, pausing wherever you feel like pausing, and continue on. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the music. few more locations along the Freedom Trail I really wanted to include in my video, but unfortunately, most of them did not allow the use of video, and some didn't even allow photography on the inside. So I thought I would just throw in a few photos and tell you about them because they're just too important to leave out of a video about the Boston's Freedom Trail. So right now we are looking at the Old North Church, which is Boston's oldest church building. It is the location from which the one if by land, two if by sea signal is said to have been sent. In 1775, Paul Revere told 3 Boston patriots to watch for the British troops and hang 2 lanterns on the church's steeple, which would serve as a warning for Charleston patriots about the movements of the British Army. One if by land, but 2 if by sea. It was from this steeple that Sexton Robert Newman hung 2 lanterns on April 18, 1775, to signal the beginning of Paul Revere's momentous ride. It is that action that is widely regarded as the spark that ignited the American Revolution. Built in 1723, it was inspired by the works of Christopher Wren, who was responsible for rebuilding London after the Great Fire. Now, that original steeple was destroyed by the New England hurricane in 1804 and was replaced with a steeple designed by Charles Bulfinch, which was also destroyed by a hurricane in 1954. The current steeple incorporates design elements from both older versions with the original weather vane atop. Today, the Old North Church is an active Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts congregation. Within its walls, you'll find a wealth of historic works, including the first bells brought to the colonies, its original 18th century brass chandeliers and clock, and 17th century carved angels. More than 1,000 individuals lay in rest in the underground crypt, including the Royal Governor's second in command at Lexington and Concord. No trip to the Boston Freedom Trail would be complete without stopping by the very house that the famous American patriot, craftsman, businessman, and entrepreneur Paul Revere lived. However, this is one of those locations where no photography was allowed inside, so all I can do is show you the outside. It was built around 1680. It's the oldest remaining structure in downtown Boston and the only official Freedom Trail site that is a home. It was from this property that its famous occupant set out for that 20-mile journey known as the Midnight Ride. Revere was not only a patriot, but also an expert silversmith, copper manufacturer, part-time dentist, engraver, and the father of 16 children. As many as 8 children lived here with him along with his mother, his first, and after 1773, his second wife. Paul Revere sold it in 1800 and it became a tenement with the ground floor used for shops and housing various businesses throughout the years. In 1902, Revere's great-grandson purchased the building, restoring it so it could be open to the public. It opened its doors in 1908 as one of the earliest historic house museums, not only in Boston, but in the entire United States. Next, we have a quick stop at Copp's Hill Burial Ground, which originally was not on the Freedom Trail, but was later added. Copp's Hill was Boston's largest colonial burial ground dating back to 1659. It was named after William Copp, a shoemaker and early settler. It's the second oldest burial ground in Boston. Some notables buried here include the Mather family, a very prominent New England ministerial family, Edmund Hart, builder of the USS Constitution, Robert Newman, who hung the lanterns for Paul Revere's ride, and Prince Hall, anti-slavery activist. Because of its height and prominent location overlooking Boston Harbor, the British used the burial ground to aim their cannons on Charlestown during the Battle of Bunker Hill. Target practice was also conducted here. In fact, it is rumored that British troops used the gravestones for that target practice. And finally, we come to the sobering sight of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill was one of the bloodiest battles of the American Revolution. "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes" became the legendary battle cry, according to lore, and immortalized the determination of the ill-equipped colonists who stood facing the powerful British Army, ready to battle. The battle occurred on June 17, 1775, when the New England soldiers faced that British Army for the very first time. The battle was a tactical victory for the British, but it was a sobering experience. The British sustained twice as many casualties as the Americans and lost many officers. According to the American Battlefield Trust, 115 colonists were killed during the Battle of Bunker Hill, and 305 were wounded. The battle also resulted in 30 colonists missing or captured, including 20 who later died as prisoners of war. In total, American casualties were less than half of the British total, which was 226 killed and 828 wounded. As the saying goes, the British won the battle, but they lost the war. Today, a 221-foot granite obelisk stands to commemorate the site of this first major battle.
Well, that's going to just about do it for my little walking tour of Boston. It is time to check out of my beautiful hotel here in downtown Boston, the Dagny, and head over to the airport and get home and start editing all this footage I got on this trip. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of Boston on this little walking tour and some of the Freedom Trail. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Take care.